Have you ever noticed this? You finish your work for the day. Nothing urgent is pending, no crisis, no deadlines, and yet your mind refuses to settle. It picks something, a conversation, a decision, a possibility, and just keeps running. Not because you have to think about it, but because you don't know how to stop. That's the part we don't talk about because from the outside, everything looks under control. But internally, nothing feels complete. Welcome to Lead Your Path, a podcast about the inner side of leadership. I'm your host, Swagata Palharia, and here we explore the mindset shifts that shape how we perform, grow, and lead. Today, we are talking about something subtle, the inability to switch off. Not because of workload, but because your mind doesn't know how to close loops. Let me slow this down for a moment. Think about your last few days. Not what you did, but what your mind is still holding. A meeting that already ended, but you are replaying what you said. A decision that's already made, but you are wondering if it was right. A conversation that's over, but you are thinking how it could have gone differently. Nothing is actually pending, but mentally, everything still feels open. And this doesn't look dramatic. There is no breakdown, no visible stress, just a constant, low level engagement. Like your mind is always running in the background. Even when you are trying to sit still, even when you are trying to rest, even when you are with the people you care about. You are there, but not fully there. I had a friend who was also a founder. Let me call him Kabir. Kabir wasn't overwhelmed with work. In fact, his team handled most of it. Decisions were distributed, ownership was clear, things were moving. But Kabir has a different pattern. He stayed mentally connected to everything, not because he needed to act, but because he needed to stay aware. If something was delegated, he still checked it. If something was decided, he still revisited it. If things were stable, he still scanned for what might go wrong. Nothing urgent, nothing broken, but nothing ever felt done in his mind. One day during our conversation, he said, "Nothing is actually pending, but my mind refuses to believe that." That stayed with me because that is not a workload problem. This is a closure problem. And this is where it gets interesting. Most people think that productivity is about doing more, but high performers struggle with something else. Not starting work, not finishing work, but mentally ending work. Because your mind doesn't operate on task completion, it operates on perceived control. And if your brain believes there is still something to watch, there is still something to think about, I should stay slightly engaged. It keeps the loop open. And over time, this becomes your default state. You stop noticing it. You just assume this is how I am. But here's what it starts costing you: not performance, not output, but presence. You are in a conversation, but part of you is elsewhere. You are trying to rest, but your mind is still working. You take a break, but it doesn't feel like a break because your mind never actually left. This is why it's confusing, because technically you are not working, but internally you never stopped. I have experienced this too. There were phases where everything was under control, nothing urgent, nothing falling apart. But my mind was still active, not solving problems, just staying engaged, replaying, revisiting, anticipating. And I used to think this is responsibility. This is what good leadership looks like. But slowly, I realized this is not responsibility. This is incomplete closure. Because when your mind doesn't complete loops, it creates a new one. Here's something subtle: your mind doesn't need real problems to stay active. It just needs possible problems. And high performers are very good at spotting possibilities. That's what makes you good at your job. But it is also what makes you hard to switch off. Because your brain keeps asking, what if something goes wrong? What if I missed something? What if I need to step in? So instead of resting, you stay lightly connected. Always. This is not burnout. This is mental over engagement. And it creates a very unique, specific kind of fatigue. Not from doing much, but from never fully disengaging. Let's make this real. How do you know this is happening to you? 3 simple signs. 1. You don't trust calm. When things are stable, your mind searches for something to engage with. Silence doesn't feel relaxing, it feels incomplete. Number 2, you revisit things that don't need revisiting. Not to improve them, but to feel you are in control again. Number 3, your day ends, but your mind doesn't. You close your laptop, but not your thoughts. If this is happening, you are not overworked. You are mentally over-engaged. So, what's the shift? Not doing less, but closing better. How can you do that? 1. Create deliberate endings. At the end of your day, ask what is complete, even if imperfect. Because your brain doesn't recognize complete automatically. It needs to be told. Number 2, stop soft monitoring. This is very important. That habit of just checking, just thinking, just staying aware, that is what keeps loops open. Either engage fully or disengage completely. Half engagement is what drains you. 3. Build tolerance for not knowing. And this is the hardest one. I totally agree. Letting things be without tracking them mentally, without controlling them, without anticipating every outcome. Because closure is not about certainty, it is about permission to release. And this is the real shift. You don't feel lighter when work reduces. You feel lighter when your mind releases. So today, I want to leave you with this. You don't need more time. You don't need fewer responsibilities. You need fewer open loops in your head. Because the heaviest work is not what you do. It's what you continue to carry after it's already done. And leadership is not just about handling complexity. It's about knowing what to mentally step out of it. If this resonated with you, just notice one thing today. Not everything, just one. One loop you can consciously close. And see how that feels. Because sometimes clarity doesn't come from solving more. It comes from finally stopping what's already finished. Thank you for being here. If this stayed with you, share it with someone who looks calm on the outside but never really switches off inside. Because sometimes the problem is not the work, it's the mind that refuses to leave. Until next time, lead your path.